The congratulations card in my hand felt like dead weight as the words hit me. You're done here, Reynolds. Clear out. First day as CEO, my last day as anything at Hawthorne Industries. The lobby echoed with the silence of 100 witnesses, pretending not to see their senior VP of operations getting tossed like yesterday's newspaper. My name is Christopher Reynolds, and I'm 48 years old. For 19 years, I'd walked through those doors thinking I'd earned my place. I was wrong about a lot of things that Tuesday morning, but I was right about one thing. Alexandra Cross had just made the biggest mistake of her corporate career. Let me back up. I'd been at Hawthorne since I was 29, fresh out of my mechanical engineering program and hungry to prove that a kid from the South Side could make it in Chicago's industrial district. Started on the manufacturing floor, worked my way up through plant management, operations, and finally senior VP. I knew every bolt, every process, every relationship that kept our 3,200 employees working and our clients happy. Hawthorne Industries makes automation equipment for automotive plants. Not glamorous, but essential. When Ford or GM needs their assembly lines running smooth, they call us. We've been doing it for 60 years, and I'd been part of that legacy for the last 19. That Tuesday started normal enough. 7:30 a.m., black coffee, same route through the industrial district I'd driven for 2 decades. I even stopped for flowers at the corner shop. White roses for the new CEO's first day. Seemed like the right thing to do. Alexandra Cross had been hired to modernize Hawthorne. That's what the board said anyway. Wall Street loved her. She'd optimized 2 companies in the last 5 years, which meant she'd fired half the workforce and sold off the profitable divisions. Stock prices went up, pension funds disappeared, and Alexandra got bigger jobs. I should have seen it coming. The elevator to the executive floor felt different that morning. When the doors opened, everything had changed. Gone were the warm oak panels and manufacturing photos. Everything was white and chrome now, like a hospital. Alexandra stood in the center of it all, 5'6" of surgical precision in a designer suit that cost more than most people's cars. She had her own people with her. Faces I didn't recognize, bodies that moved like predators. The old guard was nowhere to be seen. I walked up with my flowers and my professional smile. Ms. Cross, I'm Chris Reynolds, Senior VP of Operations. Welcome to Hawthorne Industries. She looked at my hand like it was contaminated. Then her eyes met mine, and I saw my fate written there before she even opened her mouth. Reynolds. She said my name like she was reading it off a termination list, which, I'd later learn, she was. Perfect timing. The entire floor had gone quiet. Every cubicle had popped up to watch. Her assistants smirked behind their tablets. I've been reviewing the organizational structure, she continued, loud enough for everyone to hear. Identifying redundancies, legacy hires who've grown comfortable, people who represent the old way of doing things. I kept my smile steady. 19 years in corporate America teaches you to smile while Rome burns. I'd be happy to discuss our current operations with you. We have several critical projects running, and the Blackstone contract, that won't be necessary. She cut me off with the casual cruelty of someone swatting a fly. Your services are no longer required. Security will escort you out. The words landed like a judge's gavel. Someone gasped. I think it was Amanda Wilson from engineering, who I'd been mentoring for the past 3 years. The flowers suddenly felt ridiculous in my hands. I see, I said, because what else was there to say? I'd watched too many people beg in conference rooms to ever lower myself to that. May I ask why? You may not. She'd already turned away, dismissing me with her body language before security even arrived. This is a new era for Hawthorne Industries. We need fresh perspectives, not relics from the past. Relics. 19 years of 60-hour weeks, missed family dinners, canceled vacations to keep production lines running. I was a relic. The 2 security guards who approached looked apologetic. Daniel Foster and Anthony Rodriguez, guys I'd shared coffee with 100 times. They knew I'd fought to get them both promoted to supervisory positions. Sir, Daniel mumbled, we need to escort you to collect your things. That won't be necessary, I said. I keep my personal items in my truck. That wasn't true. My father's old slide rule sat in my desk drawer, along with photos of my sons Andrew and Timothy from their high school graduations. But I wouldn't give Alexandra the satisfaction of the walk of shame. I looked down at the flowers still clutched in my hands, white roses for new beginnings. With deliberate precision, I walked to the nearest waste bin and dropped them inside. The sound they made hitting the bottom was the only goodbye I offered. Jessica Martinez, Alexandra's imported secretary, watched from her new desk. Her fingers gripped her phone like she wanted to say something, but the words died in the Arctic atmosphere Alexandra had created. The elevator ride down was the longest of my life. 15 floors of my career disappearing with each descent. Daniel shifted uncomfortably beside me. "This ain't right, Mr. Reynolds. Everybody knows what you've done for this place." "It's business, Daniel," I said, watching the numbers fall. Nothing personal, but we both knew that was a lie. The lobby was a sea of shocked faces when we emerged. Word traveled fast. Kevin Parker from facilities looked like someone had died. Amanda from engineering had tears in her eyes. "Your badge, sir," Anthony said quietly when we reached the revolving doors. I unclipped it from my jacket, ran my thumb over the photo one last time. A younger Chris, full of ambition and hope, then handed it over. "Take care of each other," I told them. They nodded, Adam's apples bobbing with words they couldn't say. Then I pushed through those revolving doors for the last time, out into the Chicago morning that didn't care about my tragedy. The city moved around me while I stood on the sidewalk, suddenly directionless. 19 years of purpose evaporated in 5 minutes of corporate theater. But as I finally forced my feet to move toward the parking lot in my F-150, something shifted. Not sadness, not even anger, just cold fury, the kind that makes you think straight. My hand moved to my jacket pocket, finding the leather notebook I always carried. By the time I reached my truck, I was already making notes, because Alexandra Cross had made a critical error. She'd assumed I was just another middle manager, another disposable part in her machine. She'd never bothered to ask what projects I managed, what relationships I'd built, what contracts bore my signature. She didn't know about Blackstone Manufacturing, and that would be her downfall. The leather of my steering wheel was worn smooth from countless late nights driving home. Now, sitting in the Hawthorne parking lot at 11:45 a.m. on a Tuesday, those worn spots felt like proof I'd ever existed here. I opened my notebook and started writing. 19 years of work that was about to bite her back. The number kept circling my mind. 19 years since I'd walked into Hawthorne as a junior engineer with a mechanical engineering degree and hunger that could have devoured the world. I'd been 29, driving my father's old Buick and wearing Sears work shirts, determined to prove a guy from the South Side could swim with the corporate sharks. I started documenting what Alexandra Cross had so casually dismissed as legacy, the Shanghai expansion in 2019. I'd spent 4 months in China, learning enough Mandarin to show respect, building relationships with manufacturers who didn't trust American companies. While other firms failed to navigate the regulatory maze, I'd secured partnerships that opened a $200 million market. My marriage to Sarah had ended during that trip. "You love that company more than your family," she'd said over a crackling video call. She wasn't wrong. Then there was the Phoenix project disaster of 2021. Our lead software developer had disappeared with critical code 2 weeks before launch, right in the middle of supply chain chaos. I'd assembled a remote team across 12 time zones, coded alongside them despite not touching programming since college, and delivered on time. The client never knew how close we'd come to catastrophe. The notebook pages filled with names, numbers, victories pulled from the jaws of defeat. The time I'd caught our vendor inflating invoices by 30%, saving the company $12 million annually. The partnership with Industrial Solutions Corp that everyone said was impossible. They don't work with Midwest firms, the board had warned. But I'd flown to their headquarters 8 times, shared beers with their engineers until business became personal. That partnership had generated over $250 million in revenue. My phone buzzed. A text from Kevin Parker. "Can't believe what happened. We're all in shock. Let me know if you need anything." Then another from Amanda. "This is insane. You built the operations division." By noon, I had 53 messages from colleagues, clients, even competitors who'd somehow already heard. The industrial world was smaller than most people realized, but I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I wrote about the sacrifices that had built my reputation. The family vacations I'd cut short when production lines went down. The divorce mediation I'd postponed when Morrison Group tried to poach our biggest client. The mornings I'd arrived before the cleaning crew and the nights I'd left after them. My pen paused over a particular entry. December 2022, the Turner crisis. Midwest Regional Automotive had caught their CEO embezzling, stock prices in free fall, every supplier fleeing. But I'd stayed. I'd flown to Detroit, sat with their emergency board, pledged Hawthorne's support when everyone else demanded immediate payment. Partners don't abandon each other in storms, I'd told them. 8 months later, when they'd stabilized, they'd rewarded that loyalty with an exclusive contract worth more than all their previous business combined. Harold Turner had hugged me in his office, tears in his eyes. "You saved us, Chris. Not just the company. the 2,800 families who depend on us. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me swipe accept. Chris. The voice was familiar but stressed. It's Patricia Walsh from Blackstone Manufacturing. I just heard. Please tell me it's not true. My stomach dropped. Patricia oversaw our contract with them. A beautiful piece of business worth $85 million over 5 years. We'd signed it just 3 weeks ago, after 18 months of negotiations. I'd been the lead architect of the entire deal. It's true, I said quietly. As of an hour ago, I'm no longer with Hawthorne. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then, Chris, you do understand what this means, don't you? You've read your own contract? Had I read it, I'd written it. Every clause, every comma, every carefully constructed safeguard. Including Section 23B, the key person clause that I'd insisted on despite pushback from our legal team. I understand, I said carefully. Then you know I have to make some calls. This is going to be a very significant problem. After she hung up, I sat in the quiet of my truck. My notebook lay open on my lap, 19 years of work that had just become a weapon. Because I knew something Alexandra Cross didn't. She thought she'd fired a middle manager, a relic, a redundancy. But she'd actually lit a fuse on a bomb she'd never bothered to read about. The key person clause was beautifully simple. If I ceased to be employed by Hawthorne Industries for any reason within the first year of the contract, Blackstone Manufacturing had the right to immediate termination with full refund of any prepayments. More importantly, they'd retain rights to any intellectual property developed during the negotiation phase, including my proprietary automation framework that Hawthorne had been planning to deploy across all major accounts. I drove home to my house in Oak Park, a modest 3-bedroom that Sarah had let me keep after the divorce. She was making good money as a corporate attorney downtown, and the boys were both at Northwestern on academic scholarships I'd helped them earn by pushing them in math and science. By 4:30 p.m., sitting at my kitchen table with a beer and my laptop, I had filled 25 pages with details, connections, relationships that couldn't be captured in any corporate database, personal cell phone numbers earned through years of trust, understanding of each client's unspoken concerns, their internal politics, their real decision makers. Alexandra Cross thought business was about spreadsheets and disruption. She was about to learn that in the relationship economy, you couldn't just delete the past. My laptop chimed. An email from Harold Turner at Midwest Regional. The subject line made me smile. What the hell is happening over there? Chris, his message read, just heard the news from someone on my board who plays golf with someone at Hawthorne. Please tell me this is some kind of misunderstanding. Also, are you aware of what this might mean for our supply contracts? I didn't email back. Not yet. Harold would be another voice in the chorus that was undoubtedly building in Chicago's industrial district. Let them all talk. Let the implications sink in. Instead, I opened a new document and began typing a timeline of the Blackstone deal. From first contact to final signature, every meeting, every revision, every strategic decision that had shaped the partnership. My partnership, built on my relationships, my reputation, my late nights and early mornings. My phone rang at 6:15 p.m. Unknown number again. This time, I recognized Jessica Martinez's voice immediately. Mr. Reynolds, I'm sorry to bother you, but are you aware that Blackstone Manufacturing has scheduled an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning? I kept my voice neutral. I'm no longer an employee, Jessica. I wouldn't know about client meetings, but you understand what this is about. Her voice dropped lower. Legal is in full panic mode. They just realized the contract implications. I'm sure Hawthorne's excellent legal team will handle whatever issues arise. Ms. Cross wants to know if you'll take a meeting tomorrow to discuss transition arrangements. Transition arrangements. As if 19 years of relationships could be handed over like a box of files. I'm afraid I'm not available tomorrow, I said, or the day after. I'm considering my options. Mr. Reynolds, please, you don't understand. If Blackstone pulls out, it's not just the revenue. They'll take the framework, the automation protocols, everything. And there's talk they might convince Turner to follow suit. Industrial Solutions is asking questions, so the dominoes were already falling faster than even I had anticipated. That sounds like Ms. Cross's problem, I said. After all, I'm just a relic from the past. I'm sure her fresh perspective will find a solution. I spent the evening making calls to my sons. Andrew, 22, was finishing his senior year in electrical engineering. Timothy, 20, was studying mechanical engineering like his old man. Both of them knew something was up when I called on a Tuesday night. "Everything okay, Dad?" Andrew asked. Just had an interesting day at work, I said. How are your classes going? We talked for an hour about their studies, their plans, their futures. I didn't mention that their future might look different depending on how the next few days played out. Sarah and I had split the college costs, but my share came from Hawthorne stock options and bonuses that might evaporate if the company collapsed. But that wasn't their problem. It was Alexandra Cross's. Wednesday morning hit like a freight train. My phone started exploding at 8:05 a.m. The first call was from Mark Stevens, Hawthorne's chief legal officer. I let it go to voicemail. The second was from someone in HR, then accounting, then a number I didn't recognize with a Hawthorne extension. By 8:20 a.m., I had 15 missed calls and 31 text messages, each more frantic than the last. Jessica's text was the most telling. Emergency. BNK invoked clause. Legal says only you can fix this. Cross is ballistic. Please call ASAP. Then Patricia Walsh. Board voted unanimously. Contract suspended pending resolution of key person clause. We're prepared to move forward with Morrison Group unless Hawthorne can remedy within 48 hours. Morrison Group, our biggest competitor who'd been circling Blackstone for years. Patricia was playing hardball and she'd just shown her cards. My doorbell rang at 8:45 a.m. Through the security camera, I saw Jessica Martinez standing on my porch, still immaculate despite the early hour, clutching a leather portfolio like a life preserver. I took my time finishing my coffee before answering. Mr. Reynolds, she began before I'd fully opened the door. Thank you for seeing me. I didn't agree to see you, I interrupted calmly. You're at my home uninvited. Her composure cracked. I'm sorry, but this couldn't wait. Ms. Cross sent me to offer you immediate reinstatement, full restoration, formal apology, 25% raise. I stepped aside, gesturing for her to enter. She followed me to the kitchen, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors. Jessica, I said, let me explain something. Yesterday morning, I was publicly humiliated in front of my colleagues. 19 years of service dismissed as redundancy. Now, because of a contract clause Ms. Cross didn't bother to read, suddenly I'm valuable again. That's not how this works. What do you want? She asked desperately. I walked to the window, watching the morning sun paint my small garden gold. What did I want? Yesterday, I'd wanted revenge. Today, standing in my kitchen with nowhere to rush to, I wanted something more complex. I want Ms. Cross to understand what she almost destroyed, I said finally. Not just a contract or revenue stream, a network of trust that took years to build. I want her to come here herself, and I want any return to be on my terms. Jessica fumbled with her portfolio. She anticipated you might say that. She's prepared to meet any reasonable demands. My phone rang. Harold Turner. I answered on speaker so Jessica could hear. Chris, thank God. I just got off the phone with Patricia Walsh. She told me what happened. Blackstone is invoking their key person clause, and she suggested we might want to review our own contracts. Jessica's face went white. And what are your thoughts on that, Harold? My thoughts? Any company stupid enough to fire Chris Reynolds doesn't deserve my business. We're scheduling a board meeting for tomorrow to discuss our options. If you're a free agent, Chris, there's going to be a bidding war. The dominoes were falling exactly as I'd predicted. After I hung up, Jessica sank into one of my kitchen chairs. Turner, too. Relationships matter, I said simply. Your boss thought she was clearing out deadwood. She never bothered to check what was holding up the roof. She pushed documents toward me with shaking hands. Please, just look at the offer. I glanced at the papers. Everything I'd asked for was there, plus things I hadn't thought to ask for. Executive VP Operations reporting directly to the board. Veto power over terminations. A seat on the board itself. Tell Ms. Cross I'll meet with her, I said finally. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Not at Hawthorne. Neutral ground, the Union League Club downtown. She comes alone. Jessica gathered her documents hastily. Thank you. Thank you. As I walked her to the door, she paused. Mr. Reynolds, yesterday when she fired you, I wanted to say something. We all did, but we were afraid. I know, I said quietly. That's the culture she wanted to build. Fear over loyalty. Well, she's about to learn what happens when you disrupt the wrong things. Thursday morning at the Union League Club was a study in corporate comeuppance. I arrived at 9:55 a.m., dressed in my best suit, carrying nothing but confidence and leverage. Alexandra Cross arrived at 10:08 a.m., and I could tell the delay was killing her. She tried to make an entrance, but I didn't look up from my phone where I was responding to Morrison Group's CEO about a potential opportunity. Mr. Reynolds, she finally said, pulling out the chair across from me. I finished typing, hit send, then looked up with a pleasant smile. Ms. Cross, thank you for coming. She looked different than she had on Tuesday. The sharp edges were still there, but stress had drawn lines around her eyes. Let's cut to the chase. The company needs you back. I'm prepared to offer whatever it takes. No, I interrupted softly. That's not how this works. You don't get to set the terms anymore. Her jaw tightened. That termination was perhaps hasty. Hasty? You destroyed 19 years of work in 5 minutes to make a point. How's that working out for you? What do you want? She asked finally. I pulled out my notebook, the same one I'd written in after she'd fired me. Let me tell you what's happened since Tuesday morning. Blackstone invoked their key person clause. Turner Industries is reconsidering their partnership. Industrial Solutions is reviewing all contracts. 3 other major accounts have made inquiries about relationship stability. Her face paled with each name. Morrison Group has already approached 2 of our clients, I continued. Every competitor smells blood, and why shouldn't they? The new CEO just proved she doesn't understand her own business. My phone buzzed. Patricia Walsh. Perfect timing. Morrison presenting at 2 p.m. today. Board wants resolution before then. I showed her the screen. 4 hours, Ms. Cross. In 4 hours, Blackstone hears Morrison's pitch. Once that happens, momentum shifts. Other clients will follow. The exodus begins. This is extortion, she said quietly. No, I replied. This is consequence. You wanted to play corporate dictator without understanding the game. Well, congratulations. You cleared the board so well that all the pieces went to your opponent. She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw her recalculating everything. Her assumptions about power, about value, about what made a company strong. If I agree to your terms, she said slowly, can you guarantee the contracts stay in place? I can guarantee I'll make the calls. Whether they listen depends on how convincing we both are about Hawthorne's new commitment to stability. The brutality of that truth hung between us. She'd thought Tuesday was about asserting dominance. Now she understood it had been the beginning of a lesson in what real power looked like. I need to make some calls, she said finally. The board will want to discuss. You have 3 hours, I reminded her. By 11:45 a.m., I had my answer. Full reinstatement as Executive VP Operations, reporting directly to the board. Veto power over any terminations in operations, and most importantly, a public acknowledgement that my termination had been an error in judgment, but the real victory came 2 weeks later. During the investigation into how the crisis had spiraled so quickly, they discovered that Alexandra had been in contact with Morrison Group before she'd even been hired. She'd been planning to gut Hawthorne's client relationships and deliver the pieces to our competitor in exchange for a position in their new Chicago office. The board terminated her immediately and unanimously offered me the CEO position. I accepted, but with conditions. No more hiring CEOs like we were buying luxury cars. All flash, no understanding of what's under the hood. We'd grow our leaders from within, people who understood our culture, our clients, our values. 6 months later, I stood in the same lobby where Alexandra Cross had ended my career. This time, I wasn't carrying flowers or wearing false confidence. I was there to welcome our newest client partner, a Fortune 500 company that had chosen us over 3 larger competitors. Every firm promised innovation and disruption, their CEO told me as we walked toward the elevators. Only Hawthorne talked about trust and longevity. In this economy, we need partners who will be there when the shine wears off. The executive floor had been transformed. Gone were the sterile white walls and chrome fixtures. In their place, warm woods and collaborative spaces. Photos of our manufacturing heritage lined the hallways, reminding everyone who walked there that we made real things that mattered. My phone buzzed with a text from my son Andrew, now graduated and working as an engineer at Ford. Saw the article about Hawthorne in Industry Week, Dad. Pretty cool seeing your picture next to Turnaround CEO of the Year. Timothy says congratulations too. I smiled, pocketing the phone. The article was nice, but the real satisfaction was simpler. We'd saved 200 jobs, kept families together, proved that sometimes experience beats arrogance. Alexandra Cross had wanted to erase the past. Instead, she'd learned that in business, the past doesn't disappear. It builds foundations. And some foundations are too solid to shake, no matter how hard someone tries to demolish them. The relic had become the cornerstone, and Hawthorne Industries was stronger for it.